Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Find a living in fisheries. The UAS Fisheries Technology Program offers online study from anywhere in Alaska, plus labs and workshops in many Alaska towns.
Is most likely a chum.
Find your living without leaving where you are. Fisheries Technology from UAS.
The National Weather Service.
Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Monday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. On satellite imagery today, looks like some pretty good clearing occurring here across the eastern Aleutians. The next storm advancing clouds right behind the clearing there to the east with good gale force winds and rain coming into the far western Aleutians. A lot of low clouds here over the northern Bering Sea from the Chukchi Sea. Actually an upper level disturbance there that on Saturday was back here over the eastern Brooks Range, and that Saturday night and Sunday tracked back to the west. Yesterday is over the Seward Peninsula, and that produced some clouds, areas of light snow out there, and it's sort of sliding northwestward now up toward Wrangel Island along the coast of Russia. And it's got a band of clouds here coming onto the northwest coast and then back down right into the St. Lawrence Island area. No heavy precipitation with that, nor wind. Clearing though to the east here. High pressure starting to take over the interior even stronger, and that'll continue for the next couple of days. You can see the clouds here begin to dissipate in the afternoon with clearing showing up. Leftover moisture here from the North Gulf Coast, continued southeast flow bringing some showers in along the mainly the upslope coastal areas or roughly over the mountains, with some shower activity getting up to the Alaska Range, possibly even in toward the White Mountains a little bit there, and then more clearing here over the eastern interior. And area clouds yesterday was a little more enhanced here along the Panhandle. That continued to dissipate, but the same sort of pattern again. One surge coming across the North Gulf Coast today and slipping right up into the southern interior, and a little bit here, but really a pretty nice day for the Panhandle. And for the chart looking like this, that trough lying right along the coastline there, very weak, not much of any wind associated with it, nor precipitation, just showers, mixture of rain or snow showers here, North Gulf Coast, up into Prince William Sound, sliding on northward. And then we've got clearing to the east, some clearing to the west. 1,018 millibar high here starting to strengthen over the north central interior, and some clouds and flurries on the Arctic coast with winds continuing to diminish there on the east side. And they weren't all that strong today, becoming even lighter and more variable back to the west. A trough right through here, as I mentioned, with clouds, lower flying conditions, flurries and fog into the northern Bering Sea. Next storm coming in out west there with 35 to 45 knot winds along and ahead of the frontal boundary with rain here. It's advancing in toward the Adak area this afternoon. Otherwise light winds, clouds around the Pribilofs, and less of that down to the south, but a few scattered showers here. Moisture with this old system that's been pulling off to the east. Still some easterly and southeast flow there, dragging some clouds and some light rain up toward a portion of the Alaska Peninsula. Very weak low in the Gulf of Alaska, circulating moisture around the top there, right on up into south central areas. But again, precipitation pretty scattered and light, and looks like some convection trying to get going up there north of the Tanana Valley. And this weak trough sitting off the southeast coast there, but there was some pretty good sunshine over inland areas. And for tonight, that trough will really just dissipate out, leaving behind some clouds, isolated showers that'll scatter up along the North Gulf Coast and into Prince William Sound. Mostly cloudy south central Alaska, especially the Kenai Peninsula, into the Madanuska-Susitna Valley here with isolated mountain showers, and less of that up to the north, but still some clouds all the way up to the Brooks Range there. This high strengthening now over central interior up to 1,027 millibars by 4 a.m. tomorrow morning. Otherwise, the Arctic coast still under the influence of the low clouds, fog, flurries in that pattern. This low pulling off to the northwest, becoming less of a factor, but they'll keep some leftover stuff here. And then increasing southeast flow now across the eastern Bering Sea. They'll start dragging some moisture clouds, maybe some showers along the Alaska Peninsula and possibly up to Nunivak Island, but the big rain producing area will be back here coming into Nikolsky, almost reaching the Pribilofs tonight, and then back to the west for the gales in advance of the front here, and possibly gales out over the far western Aleutians, although the gradient's really to the north, but this portion down here may get close enough to bring some gale force winds back into those western zones. Otherwise, Kodiak looking pretty good, just a threat of some light precipitation possibly there, mainly this evening on the east side of the island, clearing out back to the west and northwest. So Bristol Bay looking pretty cloud-free tonight, and that will continue into tomorrow. Still, pressure's building here over the interior, up to 1,031 millibars. Variable clouds here, isolated showers, and that's about it over the southeast interior. Probably not as bad as what it looks drawn on the map here, maybe a little more clearing, but really nice conditions all the way up to the Brooks Range and to the north, with that flurries now off the eastern coast, or very close, coming in toward the central coast there. Still have the remnants of a trough lying in about that position there. Still associated with this low, continues to back off to the northwest. And the panhandle here looking mostly sunny. Maybe a few scattered showers, especially in the afternoon out over the southern areas, but temperatures back into the upper 40s, 50s, maybe even lower 60s. And gale force winds now definitely socked in or bearing down on the eastern Aleutians here, up across the Pribilofs and then off to the northwest. So less wind moving into the St. Lawrence Island area, and barely a breeze occurring here along the southwest coast. Mostly sunny skies, isolated showers, few more clouds through the Alaska Peninsula. Some of that may sneak on up to southern Kodiak Island. So depending on where you are, if you're down south, you see more clouds. Chance of showers, more sun up toward Fognac Island into Cook Inlet. And the outlook for Wednesday, high pressure holding here over the interior. Good south to north flow across the Bering Sea. That's going to pull that ice edge back to the north, and the strips will just condense, and the whole thing's going to be moving off to the north. And already there's a lot less ice in Bristol Bay than what there was, so that's going to continue throughout the week with this front edging eastward but weakening. So it kind of hangs out over the Unalaska area through Wednesday afternoon, so periods of rain, but the winds won't be all that strong. The gradient will be over toward the Alaska Peninsula and even weaker yet. And then it looks like a trough swinging around the bottom side of that 984 is what that should be, not 44 millibar low. So a batch of showers coming across the Adak-Atka area with some gusty winds. And then the Arctic coast there under the high, trapped under the high, look for some low clouds, maybe a few flurries on the east side. Offshore flow will make for sunny skies on the west side with good VFR there. And just variable clouds here over the eastern interior. It looks like most of the shower activity, and there's not much, will be mostly over in Canada. And that same offshore flow here along the southeast coast should make for a sunny day with warm temperatures across all of the Panhandle from Dixon Entrance right up to Skagway to Yakutat. Temperatures down there today were in the 40s, 50s, some cases lower 60s, 61 up at Skagway, Juneau at 54 this afternoon, 46 Sitka, and 52 at Klawock. Yakutat 49 degrees and 50 at McCarthy with 40 degrees at Gultana, Northway back up to 50, Valdez reported 42, and 45 at Palmer, Kenai, and Homer today, 42 down at Kodiak, or mid-40s here, with 48 at Talkeetna, 45 degrees in Fairbanks, a little cooler there at Tanana. Back down into the 30s up to the north, but above freezing, 37 at Bettles, 36 for Yukon, 20s to the Brooks Range, with both at Anatuvik and Arctic Village. And even the north slope rising above zero now, even back to the west, with teens along the Arctic coast, Point Lay up to 24. And that's Kotzebue with 22, but Kivalina stuck at 13, 37 at Ambler, 22 degrees down at Nome, with 21, about the same there at Savunga, right at the freeze mark for Unalakleet and St. Michael at 30 degrees, with lower to mid 40s here across the Yukon, Kuskokwim Valley areas, cooling into the 30s there as you get into the deltas, and then down to near freezing toward the coast of Macoriac at 30 above. 32 this afternoon at St. Paul, St. George up to 35. 40s here from Cold Bay, Nelson Lagoon, all the way out to Atka, dropping down to 39 at Adak, and then down to 34 at Shemya. Lows for tonight out there all in the 30s, not much temperature change at all expected, with 20s here over the southwest, falling into the single numbers along the northwest coast. Eastward across the Arctic coast, North Slope could drop low below 0 tonight, but nothing colder than that 0 to 10 below range. And then back into the teens south of the mountains into the 20s for the Tanana Valley, and that pattern extends all the way down into south central Alaska, and maybe a little chillier for the Copper River Basin, but the Panhandle mostly in the 30 to 40 degree range for the lows tonight. And they'll come back up into the 45 to 55 degree range, maybe even pushing 60 in some locations again, with pretty good warm up occurring here over the interior, with it looks like 40 to 50 degree readings showing up from the Tusculum Valley up in toward the western Tanana Valley, mid 40s eastward to the 40-mile country, mid to upper 40s to near 50 south central Alaska, and then north of the mountains staying in the 20s, teens and 20s, coolest on the northwest coast, and upper 30s now along the southwest coast and the Pribilofs, mid 40s for the Aleutians. Flying weather tomorrow, still stuck with some IFR here over the Koyukuk Valley up to the southern slopes of the Brooks Range. And then it looks like along the central and maybe eastern Arctic coast, with areas of marginal VFR back to the southwest to St. Lawrence Island. Patch of IFR here just off the southwest coast covering Nunivak Island. More IFR there for the Pribilofs, back down toward the central Aleutians, but this area lifting northward, so just a weak trailing edge IFR dragging across Atka. For tomorrow afternoon, narrowband IFR now, edging in toward the Pribilof Islands, and definitely coming into Nikolsky, improving back to the west. Not too bad here up along the Alaska Peninsula, some marginal VFR in the forecast along the coast, also the eastern Arctic coast, but good VFR over all of the interior areas right down to the coast and a little beyond, with the southeast coast mostly marginal at times over the southern areas, cutting off right around the Juneau location, so it looks like the passes will be VFR for Anaktuvuk for the Berks Range. Anaktuvuk Canadigan VFR tomorrow, either approach Lake Clark and Merrill, same forecast VFR, also for rainy and windy VFR. Isabel VFR, same forecast for Mentesta, VFR for I believe all the passes, Portage and Chilkoot and White. For the freezing levels tomorrow, or late tonight, early tomorrow morning, 2,000 feet here, southeast interior down across the Panhandle. Really not much change from what we've seen, except now some warmer air getting nudged northward there in that southerly flow. 2,000 feet, trying to push up toward the Pribilof Islands, 4,000 feet over the eastern Aleutians. And for icing, area here with the main front, areas of rime icing, possibly isolated moderate, spreading up to St. Matthew Island, southward across the Pribilofs, exiting Adak and Atka, moving into the eastern Aleutians, and then kind of a mixed icing area here with convection back out to the west in the main low center, otherwise not expected anywhere else. And the jet stream showing high pressure, gradually kind of repositioning itself here. This one becoming less of a factor. We've got a ridge building over the Bering Sea. Northwest winds will be on the increase throughout the day tomorrow, and this one is actually going to build in and become stronger over the next couple of days, and that's going to keep this storminess out to the west and direct it northward. For 9,000 feet tomorrow, we're looking at pretty strong winds between the high over the interior that's strengthening and that pretty potent low over the western Aleutians. So south to north flow here, 50 to 60 knots right into the Bering Sea, taking a more northwest track there over the northern areas. Light variable winds over the interior from the Gulf of Alaska, maybe 15 knots along the Arctic coast. Southeast coast, light winds. And for 3,000 feet, same pattern, light winds here along the Panhandle, Gulf of Alaska, all the way up to the Arctic coast. And also back out to the west, not until you get along the coastline and westward, you're looking at 40 or 35 to 50 knot winds here, especially strongest ahead of the front, coming into the eastern Aleutians up toward the Pribilofs, and then dropping off and then increasing again with the gradient associated with the main low center farther back to the west. And for turbulence, smooth obviously here under high pressure from Arctic coast, Gulf of Alaska, Panhandle, nothing expected at all. Maybe some light to isolated moderate edging its way eastward here for the Alaska Peninsula, coming in close to the coastline, covering St. Lawrence Island with the more moderate stuff over the Pribilofs on down to Nikolsky, Alaska, and Dutch Harbor, and then some more moderate turbulence farther out to the west. And after the hangar flying bit, I'll be back to look at the ice edge and the marine forecasts.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Mary O'Connor with the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation and the National Institute for Occupational Safety and Health here in Anchorage. We are grateful to Alaska Public Media for allowing us to bring you hangar flying. This evening, we are pleased to have Mr. Michael Page back on the show. Welcome back, Mike.
Nice to be here again. Thank you.
Mike is the winner of the 2016 Ellen Paniak Memorial Scholarship. This was given by the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation, and we'd like to say congratulations.
Oh, I appreciate it.
How did you find out about the scholarship?
I found out about the scholarship through one of my professors at UAA, who literally came up to me and said, "Hey, Mike, put in for this, no skin off your nose type thing. Ask for some help," and I was happy that I did.
Good. I know that all of our scholarships are worth $1,500 each, and that can help with flight training or your tuition. What were you able to do with the scholarship money?
I'll admit, I put mine directly towards my flying, just because, of course, that's a big expenditure. But it's helped me live the dream that I want to do. So, can't thank you enough for it.
Where are you in your flying?
I'm almost done with my private pilot. About 30. I'm at 33.4 hours. According to my logbook the other night.
Okay, and what are you flying?
Flying a 172. So it's small, but I certainly love flying.
It gets the job done.
It does, it does.
So in addition to staying busy with your flying and school, you have some other competing priorities. In addition to your young family with a son who's 11 months old, and your volunteer work with Alaska's Healing Hearts, you keep busy.
Oh, busy is an understatement.
So what's the biggest challenge in completing your degree and getting your flight training in?
I'll admit, it's all about time management, trying to be able to keep everything in balance and keep everything in check. Time management is something that I felt in aviation has always been a big thing, and you have to be able to do that both while you're flying, but also in your personal life.
So did you have any help with that in the Air Force with your previous career, or is that just something that you developed or something that you're learning?
Oh, the military definitely teaches you the time management, but I've had to, of course, adopt it, to my personal life and to be able to raise a family and keep up with school and my Air National Guard career and helping with Alaska's Healing Hearts. So your application, I know, impressed the scholarship committee, and you showed a real well-rounded background, and not just in aviation and not just in piloting. You spent some time after the Air Force working and volunteering with some other transport aircraft. So tell us about that and what you hope to do with those skills. Absolutely. Even before I enlisted, I worked a couple of summers at the Collings Foundation in the lower 48. I'm a big fan of round engines, and anything 1950s and earlier, I love. So flying around warbirds, that type of thing, that's really where my heart lies. But after I got out of active duty, that was still there. I played around the jets enough, figured I'd go back and worked with Everett's Air Cargo for a while. Flew around their DC-6s quite a bit, and then went over to Desert Air working with them and their DC-3s. And doing a little bit of bush flying. That was kind of fun too, to get to be on a piece of history, but also keep that in the modern era.
And actually working with a piece of history.
Yes, absolutely.
And doing a service. So what would you like to see yourself doing in 5 years? Where will you be?
5 years, I hope to be at a regional airline, work my way up to one of the major air carriers. That's where I'd really like to do. But also on the side, I'd love to be doing a little bush flying myself. Trying to work with the Commander Air Force also on their airplanes, just getting a little of that warbird time that I love so much, and just flying and trying to keep my family and hopefully teach my son how to fly.
Oh, that's great. So you plan on getting your instructor certificate?
Absolutely.
Very cool. And how do you think you're going to be able to stay involved with the round engines? Do you find that more challenging in Alaska?
Up here, actually, I really don't think it's that big of a deal. You know, a lot of people are flying Beavers around, and yeah, there's a bunch of conversions out there, but the round engines, the Pratt & Whitneys, all that type of stuff are so reliable. Parts are getting harder to find, I will admit that, but a lot of new companies are out there are starting to develop new parts and remanufacture some of them to keep that stuff flying and enjoyable for everybody.
Well, very cool. We wish you the best of luck, and thank you again for your service.
Thank you, ma'am.
We really appreciate you, what you've done, and your future is very optimistic. You have a lot going for you. We hope you stay in Alaska.
I'll be staying here forever, ma'am.
I'd like to thank Alaska Public Media for their support of hangar flying, and to the members of the Alaskan Aviation Safety Foundation that allow us to provide scholarships for young professionals in aviation. It's the best way to ensure a robust future and a strong future. Ladies and gentlemen, until next time, fly safely.
Welcome back. Looking at the sea surface temperature, still pretty chilly here out in the Bering Sea with the ice edge being down toward the Pribilofs today, but on today's analysis, it's back north of St. George Island now, and still some heavier stuff, mostly east and more scattered of the Pribilofs, and still a big breakout here occurring over Bristol Bay with got to go all the way to the west here to get into some heavier ice. And of course, with the south to north winds going to be increasing, this is going to make a pretty good jog to the north here over the next 4 or 5 days. And for the marine forecast, southeast coast, we've got west winds turning northwest, 15 to 20 knots, strongest on the south coast, basically west 15 over the southern inside waters, north 10 to 15 on up to Northern Canal. And for Wednesday, small craft advisories now picking up north, higher gusts up to 25 knots, seas building to 5 feet. Only north 15 though for Stevens Passage. Looks like some northwesterlies at 20 for Clarence Strait with 4-foot seas. And we've got north to northwest 20 knots here along the southern coast on up to the north, falling back to 15 on the extreme north coast up there. Seas 5 to 7 feet, so no small craft advisories anywhere along the panhandle for Wednesday. And for Prince William Sound, Cook Inlet, light winds, light and variable, 10 knots or less with seas pretty slight. Same pattern here in the North Gulf Coast, just variable winds 10 knots with 4 to 5 foot seas, a light northwest breeze for the Barren Islands, and even less of that along Kodiak Island. Light variable winds for Shelikof Strait, and then we'll call it 15 out of the north for Kachemak Bay. And then south of the Forelands, mostly a north direction, still light, just 10 knots with seas at 3 feet. Outlook for Wednesday, not much change here. Light winds continue. Northern Cook Inlet, Tarala Cook Inlet, and Prince William Sound. Northwest 20 now kicking in on the central and eastern North Gulf Coast. Still variable back to the west, back to northwest at 20 for the Barren Islands. North 20 for Kachemak Bay, but staying light and variable for Shelikof Strait. Light northwest, actually 10 to 15, just 5 foot seas there for the east side of Kodiak Island. Bristol Bay tomorrow, east at 15 knots, 20 to 25 knot winds here coming across the Alaska Peninsula with 5 to 7 foot seas. And from Castle Cape on up to Sitkinak, northwest at 20. Outlook for Wednesday, east 20 knots, Bristol Bay. Small craft advisories blowing from southeast to northwest across the peninsula with much lighter winds again from Sitkinak, or from Castle Cape to Sitkinak. For the Aleutians here, that front driving eastward, we've got gales tomorrow from the central Aleutians out of the south from the central Aleutians, becoming more southeasterly, 35 to 40 knots across Unalaska Island. And then those go north at 30 knots here for the western areas that low center pulls eastward. And then for Wednesday, the whole pattern continues to pull off to the east. So it looks like 25 knot winds here from the west of Nikolsky, turning southwest 25, and then some brisk westerlies at 30 knots there with 15-foot seas. And in advance of the front, minimum gales now coming across Unalaska Island at 35 knots. For the southwest coast, small craft brisk wind advisories there for tomorrow, coming up to 25 knots in the afternoon with seas up to 3 feet, and gales out for the Pribilof Islands, east 40 knots there for the northern Bering Sea and St. Matthew Island. And then for Wednesday, minimum gales coming into the Perlofts, or forecast for the Perlofts there, and they probably have some sea heights back in the forecast for Wednesday, with the ice should be north of both islands by that time. Brisk and small craft advisories, 30-knot winds there south of Nunivak Island, all the way up into the northern Bering Sea, with a more easterly direction there from St. Matthew Island westward. And up along the Arctic coast, east side, central and east side, east 15, and then south 10 to 15. Not too bad here, back all the way down to the Bering Strait. Outlook for Wednesday, a little bit of an increase here from Wales all the way up to Cape Beaufort, southeast 20 to 25 knots, dropping back to light out of the east here for the west side. And that pattern continuing, really actually no wind in the forecast here for the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. And for tonight, just a breeze up there tonight with throw some flurries and clouds in, maybe some fog that'll extend into the Chukchi Sea, with the remnants of this low here slowly pulling off to the northwest. Probably still could have drawn a weak trough into this position here, but strengthening high pressure over the interior will continue, and we've got some leftover moisture here down to the North Gulf Coast with a few showers, and that diminishing across the southeast coast. Big storm out west, gale force winds, central Aleutians tonight edging eastward. Bulk of the energy though pushing up to the north, and tomorrow they'll continue to slowly push eastward here, bringing definitely gales and rain, possibly heavy at times for the eastern Aleutians, on up to the Pribilofs. More showers and gusty winds back to the west. Sunshine on the increase over the interior, some leftover stuff, very weak trough along the northwest coast, and just isolated showers. A few more clouds over the southeast interior, and also for the southern panhandle, and sunshine there for Wednesday. Lots of sun over the interior and a weakening front out west.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.